Welcome to video number 45 in the Using iTrain tutorial series. My name is Bob. In this tutorial we run through the explanation of exercise 1 step by step. Welcome back. So, how did you get on with the exercise? I almost feel like I need to apologise for the difficulty of it. But hopefully you managed to at least get some of it working. And if not, a big pat on the back for even attempting it. Now, I should perhaps make it clear that it would have been a much easier task to perform this operating scenario using train routes. Because with train routes, we have very precise control of the outcome. But this exercise is about the use of automatic routing without a route, and with the emphasis on without a route. Because this is the mode in which iTrain creates the route, not us. iTrain has no idea that we want it to perform a certain operating scenario. It will be busy creating its own random route and making intelligent decisions on the fly based on things that are happening on the layout in real time. Our task is to try and influence those decisions such that they perform our intended operating scenario, or a close approximation of it. The remarkable thing is that iTrain has the intelligence to take our input and modify the route accordingly. Everything we need to achieve this is contained within one drop-down menu, the Edit menu. As you are hopefully now starting to find, iTrain has a simple, efficient user interface, so it is easy to find things. There is nothing that is hidden deep within menus that we need to wade through to uncover. Everything is contained in here, in the Edit menu. And that is one of the purposes of this exercise, to provide a refresher of some of the things we have learned during the numerous tutorials that we've been through about automatic routing without a route. The tutorial will be in 3 parts. We will start with the Intercity train and get that running around the loop and performing its stops. Now, I realise that that is something that is relatively simple for you to do now, and you can probably do it in your sleep. But we will use the exercise to explore some of the tips and tricks for debugging a problem. In part 2, we will work on the shuttle and get that running back and forth from B2 and around the loop. And in part 3 we will look at how to get everything working together, so both trains performing their scenarios together on the layout, which is perhaps the most trickiest part of the exercise. So we will start now with the Intercity train. Probably the most sensible way to approach the exercise is to think about what is required in the scenario and then configure the parameters to suit. But I am going to approach it in a different way. I am going to simply place the train onto the layout, press the start button and see what happens. And let's face it, that is often what we do when we are distracted or not thinking ahead. And then something happens to the train that we were not expecting, and we are puzzled by the error message that appears. So by approaching the exercise in this way, I hope to reveal more of the types of problems that we encounter in the real world of using iTrain. Okay, so let's get started. We need the Intercity to be in block B1 to start, so we simply drag it onto B1. There is no train route shown down in the throttle here, so we know that when we press the start button we will be running automatic routing without a route. Pressing the start button here in the throttle starts this particular train. If the train is located in a station, as it is here, we can also start it in another way. If you left click and hold it, you get this menu here. Using this start button, it will start all trains that are contained within the station. So if there were 2 trains in this station, it would be the equivalent to pressing each of their start buttons in their individual throttles. So using this start button is a neater way of starting all trains that are located in the station. The finish option here means that any trains currently in the station will finish their routes. So if a train in the station is running automatic routing without a route, that means the train will finish the route at the next station, not finish the route actually in this station. So DB poll, for example, if that was in the station and we pressed finish, it would continue round and then actually finish at the next station along the route. But if a train is running a train route, it means that any train or that train that is currently in the station will continue visiting all the remaining blocks in its route and stop after the train arrives at the last block before the route repeats. And the other option we have in this menu here is to stop the routes of any trains that are in the station. So all the trains currently in the station will be stopped here and their routes will be deactivated. When there are no trains in the station, you will not see these 3 options. You will just see this state menu here. And in here we can change the state from normal, which is what it is set at the moment. We can change it to finish. The state finish means that trains that enter the station will finish their routes here, which is different to using the finish state from this menu here. So again, this finish here means that any trains that are currently in this station will finish their routes, and that may mean that they will continue on round to the next station if they're running automatic routing without a route, or if it's running a train route, it will continue visiting the remaining blocks in its route until it gets to the point where that train route repeats, and then the train will stop in that location. But the state finish here, if we click on that, that means that any trains that are about to visit that station will then finish their routes in that station. And you notice that the border of the station has now changed from a dashed line to a solid black line. And you can achieve this state also by alt clicking on the station. So you can take the station back to its normal state either by double clicking within the station like this, and you see it's gone to a dashed line. If we alt click in the station, that puts it into the finish state. If I double click again and then long left click, we can also put it into the finish state by selecting finish from there. And there we have the solid black line. If I long click again and select normal, we come back to the dashed border to the station. If I long left click again, the other state that we have in here is called pass, which means that no trains will stop in the station and wait, but they are able to pass through the station. And that is achieved with the shift key plus clicking on the station, which turns the station grey. So if I go to pass now, you see that the dashed line has turned grey. I'm going to double click to bring it back to normal, and then I'm going to activate it in a similar way by pressing the shift key and clicking on the station, which achieves the same thing. And again, double clicking within this station returns it to normal, or we can long click and set it to normal that way. Incidentally, you can use the long left click on other switchboard items too, such as on the block symbol here. If we long left click on that, we can set the block to inactive, which is where we grey out the block as if it was occupied. And you remember we can alt click to return that to its original state, or we can long left click on it again and select it as active again. It can be used on turnouts. Long left click and then you can select to change the turnout, or just simply click on it to change the turnout. And if you long left click on the block symbol where a train is located, then you can activate or deactivate the block, or you can start that individual train. So let's do that now. Let's simply start the Intercity train and see what happens. So I'm going to press the start button and we get a message here which says route not possible from this position, and the message is also repeated down here, route not possible from this position. Well, that's not a very good start, is it? So why is that happening? All the block arrows are pointing in the right direction, so that's okay. DB pole is a steam train with wagons on it, so it needs to be facing forwards. We are in reverse gear. So even though we may have placed the actual train on the physical layout facing in the correct direction, we forgot to check the orientation in iTrain to ensure that it matches the physical train on the layout. When we place a new train onto the layout, we need to ensure that it is in forward gear and then check the direction arrow on the track is pointing in the correct direction for travel. In this case, it is now facing or pointing in the wrong direction, so to correct that we press down the shift button and click on the direction arrow, and now we have flipped the direction within iTrain to match the physical orientation of the train on our model railway. That was all revision and stuff we should know, but it's a reminder to ensure that we follow the correct process when we place a train on the layout. We can remove the error message by double clicking on it in the throttle here, not in the info box. That won't remove it. You double click it in the throttle area here. Or if the problem has been resolved, just starting the train again will remove the error. And there you go, the error is now gone and the train has now started reserving blocks in the layout, so things now look more promising. So let's progress the route by double clicking on the feedbacks. A wait is scheduled for station 2 as expected, because the station is set to receive all train types. Wait is ticked and the chance is at 100%, so trains will always wait when they come to this station, and the wait duration is set to exactly 30 seconds. We can see that the wait is progressing as the orange bar drifts down, and then when it completes it reserves the path further on around the route. Later we will want to change these settings for intercity trains, but for now we will leave them as they are. I am deliberately minimizing the number of changes that I make in one go so that I can check that each change hasn't introduced a different problem. When we gain more experience, we will be able to safely make more changes in one go. Okay, so let's progress the train round, and this time instead of waiting for the 30 seconds to complete, we'll do something else. So let's bring the train into here. When it enters the actual station, it turns orange, and we can long left click on there and then select cancel wait. So we haven't needed to wait for the 30 seconds to finish. We were able to cancel it and the route then continues round. Now that is a helpful feature, but we do need to be aware that in some circumstances, as we will see in the next tutorial, waits can be used to trigger something else when the wait completes. But if we cancel the wait, that event will then not occur. So it's just something that we need to be aware of when we cancel a wait. For example, for the shuttle train, we will be using the completion of the wait to trigger a change of direction. If we cancel the wait, that change of direction would not occur. So, back to the train. Getting the train to complete a loop should be pretty standard stuff for us by now. Nothing too difficult to accomplish. We can see that the train wants to continue on around the route, but we will stop things there. We've checked that the waits are occurring at each station, but this time let's speed up the process by setting the wait to just 1 second. And we do that for both stations. And by setting it to 1 second, we've reduced the wait time, but the waits are still occurring. So if there were any events that were triggered by the waits occurring, they would still go ahead. But we've speeded the process up by not having to wait as long. So let's start the train around the route again and progress it along. But this time we will check that B2 gets used when B1 is occupied. So if we long click and select inactive, that block goes grey to simulate it being occupied. So now when we progress round, when the train gets into station 1, the wait will only now be 1 second, and then yes, it correctly comes round and into station 1 again, and we will have a 1 second wait here. And 1 second, and off we go again. So let's stop that now and reset this back to an active block. So the last thing we want to accomplish for the Intercity is to set it up so that Intercity trains have a variable and random wait when they visit the stations. To do that, we right click on the station, select the station properties, and then in the table here we need to add an entry for the Intercity type train. So we click append, and then from the type menu we select our Intercity. We want it to wait in this station, or have the ability to wait in that station, but we want the wait chance to be just 35%. So we set this to 35 and enter. And we want the wait duration to be between 5 seconds and 10 seconds. So 10 and return. We don't want the Intercity train to change direction when the wait is completed, so we leave that unticked. And then remember to click OK to save the changes and not to simply close the window down, otherwise the changes will not be made. And then we do the same in station 2. Select, we need to append to add the Intercity train. We can make the wait time or wait chance 35%, and the wait time we will make minimum of 5, maximum of 10. No change of direction needed. Click OK to save, and that should be us set for both stations. Okay, so let's try that, and for a change we'll use the start button down here. So click start, and we see it's reserved the route. On this occasion a wait is not going to occur. Let's stop and start so we can test to see whether waits are occurring randomly, which it is occurring this time. You can see it's a solid orange bar. We'll stop and start and just check that there is a random variation there, and it certainly appears that that is the case. So let's progress our train round. This time we expect the wait to vary between 5 and 10 seconds, and we can see it's definitely not 1 second, so the variation in the wait time is occurring, and the train is now passing through B1 and around the loop again. And let's check that there is variation occurring in station 1. So we stop and start, and it's chosen B2 this time. I was expecting everything to go through B1. So why is that occurring? Let's stop and start. B2, B2 without a wait, B1 without a wait, B2 without a wait. We haven't seen B1 with a wait yet. Let's see if that, so that does occur. So why is B2 randomly being chosen here? Do you remember the reason for that? Let's see if we can just bring it up. There we go. B2 has been randomly chosen. And the reason for that, if you remember from the previous tutorials, if a wait is not scheduled in the station, then the block selection method will not be active. So the in order, which is active when a wait is scheduled in the station, will not be in operation. So iTrain then randomly selects the blocks from the station, and the in order selection process is not obeyed. But when a wait does occur, in order will then be active, and then iTrain will select the block that is first in the list of blocks in this table here. So when a wait occurs, B1 will always be selected unless it is occupied, and when wait is not active due to the random variation, then we get variation in the choice of blocks in that station. So there we have it. We successfully have achieved the first part of the exercise, which is to get the Intercity train running round in a clockwise direction only, randomly stopping at station 1 and randomly stopping at station 2. We saw some of the tips that we can use to speed up or to help debugging. We can set the wait times to just 1 second when we're debugging, so we're not having to wait for waits to occur. We can set the stations to different states, to normal, to finish, to pass, which allows the trains to pass through. When we long click on a block with the train in it, we also get these other options that we can use for finishing or stopping the trains. The other way we can change the state of the stations is by we can use the Shift and Alt, which will put the station into the pass-through state. We double click within the station to get it back to normal, and we can Alt click in the station to make the station a finish point for any trains that enter the station, and again double click to bring it back to its normal state. We can long click on blocks to change their active state. So now this block is disabled as if it was occupied, and long click again to reactivate it. So that is all for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we'll start working on the shuttle train and getting that to operate around a loop and reversing direction when it enters B2. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching, and remember, please press the like button.